Welcome back to the channel. This is Punched, and today we're going to address some questions that have come up online about the difference in the combat rules between the older versions of the Armored Knights games and the newer versions. So the older versions of Armored Knights include games such as Operation Crusader in North Africa. It also includes Armored Knights Guderian Crosses the Desna, as I understand it. I think there may be another title or two, but those are representative. So what we have here is we have Operation Crusader rulebook and some of the relevant tables laid out. So I'm going to quickly cover this, and then we're going to switch over and look at how combat proceeds in Guderian Crosses the Meuse. So Guderian Crosses the Meuse is the 2023 Armored Knights game, came out that year, and it has a compatible rule set with the upcoming Armored Knights Case Blue Don Bend. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit, very light coverage of what we've got going on here, some of the chief mechanics. Then I'll show what's going on with Armored Knights Case Blue. So spoiler alert, in my opinion, the Case Blue streamlines the combat, yet introduces some new innovation that really adds to the flavor of what's going on. So let's proceed. So in the older version of Armored Knights, you have this thing called a modifier table. That's what we're looking at right here. And with the modifier table, you wind up coming to combat, so the players decide on what units they want to devote to combat, right? So suppose I'm the German. I'm the German player. I am attacking one of the Commonwealth forces, okay? And I have to I bring my forces, right? So here are my stacks of forces. Here are the units that I bring. I have to pick artillery if I'm going to devote artillery to the attack and close air support. Before I proceed, I need to roll on the modifier table. Okay, the modifier table says, hey, in a combined arms context, what benefits am I getting to my combat strength from all of these different kinds of contributing units? So I'll read a few of these off. The Germans have military intelligence, light anti-aircraft, heavy anti-aircraft, typically the 88s, armor, reconnaissance, engineering, anti-tank, and close air support. And you can see that this is pretty much pretty representative of what the Italians and what the Commonwealth forces have. So let's suppose that I roll a 4. I'm bringing a company of light anti-aircraft. I'm dedicating a military intelligence point to this combat. I have an armored unit, I have an engineering unit, and I have at least some close air support, Stukas or maybe some level bombers. So suppose I roll a 4. With a 4, that one die roll reads right across, and you take the modifiers from that column. In this case, you can see them here: 10% line anti-air, 10% military intelligence, 30% plus a +1 dice roll modifier to armor, 15% each for engineers and close air support. These all stack as a multiple, okay? And if you do the math on it, you have to 1 times 1.1 times 1.1 times 1.3 times 1.15 times 1.15 equals 2.08, roughly speaking. To which you then total up the usual combat factors on all your counters, and you multiply it out. Now, there are also situational modifiers that are present. So things such as terrain modifiers for hills, towns, elevation changes. If you're fighting at night, that's different. If you're defending with anti-aircraft, you can get a boost from that, and so on. If you are the attacker, you might run into mines or a ditch, which have some negative effects upon you, and so on. There are also regimental integrity factors for both sides. So it's a fair amount of, it's not difficult math, but there's a fair amount of it, and this is for every combat, okay? So that is what's going on here. So what I can tell you is that, generally speaking, and I'll show you the charts here in the next segment. Generally speaking, the modifier table is gone, okay? All of these percentage-based modifiers have been replaced with die roll modifiers, and they're situational. There are rules around when you can use the die roll modifiers and when you can't. Typically, it means that you don't get any of these have to be combined arms modifiers, which means that you combine these units, not the air, not the MI, but you combine the supporting units, supporting branches, armor, and so on, with infantry. So if you have two companies of infantry, then you start getting die roll modifier bonuses. We'll go over that shortly. So much of the other combat mechanics remain the same. There is an attacker table, there is a defender table, there are terrain modifiers that apply where appropriate, there are situational modifiers that apply when appropriate. But by taking out the modifier table, you're just dealing with die roll modifiers now, not percentages. Although certain things like regimental integrity, attacking at night, those will have the effect of requiring you to do some multiplication, but it's a lot more predictable now. This sort of thing is really difficult because until you roll the die, you've already committed to the attack, right? Your units are on the table. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't work this stuff out in your head. You don't know, for example, if I devote a military intelligence point to this combat, am I going to get a 40% boost to my capabilities or a negative 20? It's not predictable, right? So it makes things much, much more chaotic, frankly, than they need to be. And you could wind up getting yourself into analysis paralysis, I think, very easily with this game system. It does work. Don't get me wrong. It does work, right? And it gives a significant flavor to the particular battle, which is Operation Crusader, right? So you can dial in on the known behaviors of units, the known behaviors of different types of units in that particular battle, that particular campaign. So this is a good thing, but it's not a fast thing. All right. So now the next segment, we're going to talk about Guderian crosses the Meuse, and by extension, we will talk about Armored Knights Case Blue.